Meanwhile, on the comic box.
I'm Danny Rand, and I'm the Iron Fist. Kick it, Liam.
Wow.
Comics. Wah. Oh, that's right. Last week I did the hoo-ha-wah thing when talking about... Yeah, there you go. Nice one.
It's Iron Fist. It's kind of a karate noise. It makes sense.
That's right. Hoo-ha. Welcome... Gotta get back to the past, Samurai Jack. Better show. Welcome to the Comic Box, home of me, Rob, your friendly. I screwed this up, didn't I? Welcome to the Comic Box, part of the Geek to Geek podcast network. Haha, did it right. I am Rob, your friendly neighborhood comic geek. With me once more, after his week-long break, is the Lucifigal Liam O'Rourke.
That's me. I am light avoiding, as you know.
Yeah, avoiding light, because as we know, Lucifer is actually the light bringer, is what that translates to.
And with me is, of course, the rubicund Robert Becca.
Did you look up a word for me?
I did.
Oh, well, what is it?
It is an adjective, especially of someone's face, having a ruddy complexion, high-colored, as in someone who spends time out in the sun.
Seriously? You looked up the opposite of what my thing is with an R.
Exactly.
Wow.
Whoop, whoop.
That is dedication that I wish you would have put towards finishing off the show.
Well, the thesaurus is a lot more interesting than the show, so.
All right, we'll get into that. This week, our topic of the week is Marvel's Iron Fist, the Netflix original series, which I watched all of. I literally finished it this morning. We're recording late Thursday night. I finished it here Thursday morning. I tried to fit episodes in wherever I could, and Liam got through 4.5 episodes and quit.
Well...
Yeah, are you planning on finishing it off?
I probably will.
Okay.
Part of it, I guess I just was thinking going into it that they were like normal 20-minute, half-hour episodes, not thinking 45 to an hour.
Yeah.
So, I started watching it, and it was just like, late at night for me, because, I'm a late night person.
Right, the light avoiding, the Lucifugal.
Mm-hmm, that's me. So, I didn't have all the time in the day to be able to watch all of it,
right.
And I didn't want to devote all of my free time to watching it. So I started a couple nights ago, realized it was going to take longer than I thought, and so I watched what I could in the time that I had.
Okay. Well, due warning, we'll just throw it out right here at the top. We will have spoilers throughout this whole thing. I will be able to speak at length about all of this show, because I did all of the comic research ahead of time. We read that arc of Iron Fist, so I will certainly have things, so it will be spoiled for you. We'll let you guys know when we get into that, because before we do that, I want to talk a brief weekly geekery. Liam, what you been up to this week?
Well, I was invited by some of my friends to once again play Legendary, that Marvel deck-building game.
You have now played it more than I have, and I own the game.
Oh. Well, my friends are big, gaming freaks.
Yeah.
So they have kind of a weekly gaming session.
Cool, love it.
So Wednesday night when I get done with work, it'll be late, it might midnight or later, and they'll still be playing. So they invited me to come over and play a game. So last night when I got done, I went over there, we played a game. Things did not look up. We were not doing so well. And then all of a sudden we came back from behind, rallied, and triumphed over... Oh, I forget who we fought. It was they have so many of the expansions that it's not just like the base set.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Besides that, I switched my gaming from Rocket League over to a little game called Crusader Kings 2, which is a dynasty building game. And I have now cracked 600 plus hours in that game, so I've put in my time.
But you couldn't spare 12 for Iron Fist.
Well, I mean, I was watching it while playing this game, but I only had so much time. So, I tried.
That's fair. Anything else you have going on this week?
Not especially.
Okay. Well, for me, I watched all of Iron Fist.
There you go.
That was pretty much it. That was pretty much my week.
That'll take your time, all right.
Yeah. As far as comics... I didn't continue. I said I may continue reading The Immortal Iron Fist. Instead, I finished reading Invincible. I read all the trades that were out there that I could get. It is a good comic. It does get really dark in places and violent. It's written by Robert Kirkman, the guy who does The Walking Dead, so it's the same sort of level of stuff, just in a superhero world.
Okay.
Beyond that, the only game that I have played this week is I downloaded, or maybe I already had it on there, but that Marvel Puzzle Quest, it's basically Bejeweled for Marvel.
Okay.
I have that on my tablet, and I play that when I, just want to kill time for a couple. Well, we talked about this, because I talked about being addicted to these sorts of games.
Oh, yeah. They're easy to pick up and put down.
Also, totally side note, because I don't have it in here because I just finished doing this like an hour and a half before we started recording. I just had a GIF fight with Beej on Twitter, and it was awesome and completely friendly. He sent me a GIF of Bruce Campbell, and we just launched into it and must have gone back, I don't know, 6 times with different Bruce Campbell GIFs. So and that was my personal account. That was Noby, so at KNOWBY or at Professor Beej is his account. If you guys just want to see, I feel like I'm pretty good at the GIF game. I feel like I can almost always find an appropriate GIF that says exactly what I want to say.
Yeah, you GIF as good as you get.
Yeah, exactly. So I had fun doing that. That was while I was putting the outline together. Should we do some quick news?
Let's do the quick news.
I just have one piece of news. So let's just transfer with the
Skittle-bop.
news. Next week, I should say, we're doing a full-blown news. Next week's episode is going to be nothing but news and weekly geekery. We're going to do some big dives and catch you guys up on what's been going on the last couple of weeks. The only thing I want to say is there is a new trailer for the Justice League film, which is going to come out this Saturday. So 2 days after we're filming, that's Saturday the 25th? Is today the 23rd of March? So March 25th, a new trailer for the Justice League, so we will definitely be talking about that. The film's official Twitter account, which is at Justice League WB, has been releasing these little tiny teasers because they're doing like character posters or whatever, but they're releasing these little like 2-second clips that just show maybe 3 shots of a character in the movie. So as of this recording, they had an Aquaman, a Batman, and a Flash that I saw. There might have been more while I was finishing up the outline. So you can go and check on that if you're really excited for Justice League. Otherwise, this weekend. So by the time you listen to this podcast, probably, unless you jump on it right away and I actually get it done and out on Friday, go check out the Justice League trailer. And that's all I'm giving to you. No other news. There's plenty of other stuff that happened, but we ain't talking about it until next week. Shall we move on to the poll list then?
We might as well.
Okay, so with the poll list, we're going to
poll list.
Yeah. So what are you looking... We were trying to talk about this before the show, knowing that next week is going to be a news week, so we're not actually going to have a topic of the week tied to a particular thing to read. So what is it that you are planning on reading then? Because we can still talk about what we're going to read this week. Because I know you still have a couple things in mind you haven't finished yet. Is that correct?
I think I do have a couple of things of yours around here. The Great Lakes Avengers.
Yeah.
I think I have some of that. And I know I still have some Runaways. And I'm pretty sure I have finished all the Rat Queens that you have given me so far.
Did I loan you the 2 Swamp Thing volumes?
So, yeah, I did finish the first volume of that, and I'm partway through the second. So, yeah, I might just finish that up.
Okay. So, for simplicity's sake, you are reading Swamp Thing and...
The Great Lakes Avengers.
And Great Lakes Avengers for next week. As far as what I'm reading, we've also been talking American Gods is coming up. There is a comic book adaptation, the first issue of which just came out this past week.
Okay.
Neil Gaiman, obviously, as far as comics, is probably most famous for writing Sandman. I do own the first volume of Sandman as a trade. I picked it up at the suggestion of Dr. Ray, who absolutely loves the Sandman series. And so I think I'm going to give it a shot again. We don't really have any other comic book related stuff coming for us to read, right? Ghost in the Shell comes out the end of this month, and there is did Ghost in the Shell start as a comic?
As a manga.
As a manga, excuse me.
And then there is an anime, yeah.
Right, because I want to say maybe I've seen the anime. So that is a thing. There is a comic related thing. And there was also the movie starring, what was it called? Wilson. Yeah, so there was also Wilson starring Woody Harrelson. I just got tongue-tied thinking that, which is based on a graphic novel that I've never heard of or read. But that just came out, I think.
Okay.
So I'm acknowledging that I know about it as a comic fan. Generally, we cover the superhero stuff. So I don't know if we're going to do Ghost in the Shell or not, because I've never read it. Is it just like a one manga, or is it like an ongoing thing that was only turned into the anime?
Yeah, it's a voluminous sort of thing, because when it comes to the anime, there's the original Ghost in the Shell movie.
Right.
They also then did, years later, a sequel to that, and they also did at least 2, to my knowledge, TV series.
Oh, okay. That sounds like a lot. I don't think I'm going to get to all that in a week.
Yeah, Standalone Complex, I know that's one of the names of one of the shows. I don't know the name of the other one. I'm pretty sure there's a second one, but yeah.
Well, for the sake of simplicity, we'll say that we're not going to read all of Ghost in the Shell or watch all of Ghost in the Shell. But I'm letting you know that that's coming up at the end of the month. You ready to talk some Iron Fist?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Right after this.
I'm Void.
And I'm Beej.
And together, we're the Geek to Geek podcast. Well, we make it. It is kind of us, but I guess it's separate.
Every week, we pick a topic from geek or digital culture and chat about it for a while.
And you're invited. We talk about books and movies, games, comics, the internet.
Or really whatever we feel like.
Yeah, that too.
So look for the Geek to Geek podcast on iTunes.
Or wherever your podcasts are sold. Or downloaded. Or whatever.
Topic of the week.
So that was basically the opening theme. Should we just start with that? Like, just literally right off the bat? Your first impression of watching an episode of Iron Fist is their opening sequence. And all of these Marvel Netflix shows, and we can talk about this without being spoilery because it's just the opening sequence. Like, all the shows have a very sort of stylized opening. That's like a thing now with TV dramas, is they have very stylized openings that are made by like a completely separate company. You're not seeing shots of characters or anything like that. Daredevil is by far my favorite in the Netflix ones. I was not as much a fan of Luke Cage. I like the music in the Luke Cage opener fine, but I thought just the very slow-mo dude punching, I just didn't quite get behind it. This one I didn't like.
No, I haven't seen Jessica Jones or Luke Cage, as we've discussed.
Yeah.
I really like the Daredevil one, and this one I was just, ugh.
The opening, it was like, I got what they were doing, and it's a neat idea, because the opening is just the dude doing like kung fu moves, and as he's doing it, he's leaving these waves, which slowly builds up into just all of these waves surrounding him, but then nothing is done with it.
And the music is lame.
The music was not good. Like, if it was building up to something,
Yeah.
and it sounds like it is, and then it drops it right back down. And I think that's meant to be like the, maybe very Zen kind of thing. But like he's making all these swirls around him, this character, and at the end I would have been like, then light up the fist and do that punch the ground thing that you see in the trailers, and like explode that out, and then you get Iron Fist. Like, do something else. And they just kind of did it and then just cut to an Iron Fist logo. It's like the guy was making this thing. He's like, yeah, and then then he's going to do this move. And then he's going to, yeah, and then he's going to do this move. And they're like, hey, this can only be like 20 seconds. And then, oh, well, yeah, that's fine. I'll just stop what I'm doing then. Just put the title screen up if you're going to be a jerk about it. And like, that's what we got for an opener.
And the music is just like very muted and subdued.
Which would work if the visuals matched.
Yeah, and it does work for Daredevil. No, like, because of his character, because of what you know about him, about his environment. Like, I don't know that Iron Fist is like automatically a night dweller or like a shadow dweller of any kind. He's wearing gold and green, and his fist is blazing like fire. Like, it doesn't seem like he would be up there with Daredevil just hanging out in the shadows, like, skulking about, which the music has that sort of a feel.
Yeah.
And again, like, his character is such a bright character, and the colors in the opener are all just like blacks and browns and grays. It's just very boring, and it feels derivative, certainly, of the Daredevil one, but not in like a complimentary, if Daredevil's side A, this is side B kind of thing.
Yeah. Thus ends the spoiler-free, or do you want to give a spoiler-free general review, just kind of a liked it, didn't like it before we do any sort of details?
Okay, I will say that if you're going to give this series a try, to see if you like it or not, at least watch 4 episodes to determine that. Because in my opinion, the first 2 episodes are a little weak, and it gets slightly better in the third, fourth, fifth episode. So if you're going to try it, don't just watch the first or second episode and think that is the whole show. Daredevil had a little bit more of a momentum at the beginning, and I think they did that better. If you're going to watch this, give it a little more of a try than just the first 2 episodes.
And I will give this that. I also I don't think either of us were really fans of the show, but it does build, like, the last 3 episodes are decent. So if you really don't care about any of the character building and you just kind of want to see, finger quotes, the good stuff, start on episode, honestly, 11. 10, 11, and 12? Or is it 13 episodes? Then it'd be 11, 12. I think it's 13. So 11, 12, and 13. There's some other stuff in there that you might be confused about, but in general, it's pretty clear to figure out who everybody is, maybe even through their dialogue of those 3 episodes. So if you just want to see, like, the big fight stuff or whatever, all of the Netflix shows sort of have mini arcs where it's not all one 13-episode story. It's like the first, in batches of 3 or 4 episodes is kind of how they do these mini arcs and then have an ongoing narrative. This does that as well, but very much so the last sort of story thing is the one that matters and is clearly the best of the 3 or 4, however you would want to split it up, sort of mini stories in the thing. I was much happier with the show at the end, but overall I still was not a fan.
Yeah.
Shall we spoil?
Let's spoil away.
Okay. Here's how I want to break it down. I want to do sort of our overall impression. I want to talk about the plot, and then I want to dig into the characters. Does that work for you?
Sure.
Okay, so start me off with your overall impression.
Again, I haven't finished the whole thing, so there's a lot here that I'm unfamiliar with.
Mm-hmm.
It just seemed boring. If I had to boil it down to just one word, a lot of it's just boring. Those first 2 episodes, he doesn't know how to do his powers, essentially, and so you don't really get to see him do anything really impressive or that really, like, whoa, did you see that? Oh man, I can't wait to see what he's going to do now. It's just kind of like he comes back and immediately starts trying to do this whole legal proceeding of proving who he is and maybe getting some stake in his parents' company again. It just launches into that kind of thing as opposed to him deciding to, like, clean up the streets in some way,
Yeah, this is not a Green Arrow, I am coming home to clean up my city. It is not, like, Daredevil literally says, my city, at least once or twice over the course of his 2 seasons. There is none of that. We don't even know where Iron Fist is, except that he's in New York.
Yeah.
Overall, my impression is just that it started, like I said, in the last 3 episodes, it started coming together. And that's why I kind of feel bad for you only having seen what you have, because it starts getting better, but so much more could have been done. They wasted so much time on those first episodes. There was no reason for them to do that. And we'll talk about when we talk about the plot. I feel like so much time was wasted. It was very much here's a dude who has a glowy hand that can punch through walls and doors and all sorts of stuff, and you expect to see him doing it a lot, and they don't. And some of that might be due to budget. You would think not.
Yeah.
Because there's only a couple locations they ever really use in the show. The show clearly didn't have a massive budget unless it was to pay the actors. It looks okay, but it didn't mesh. So I figured they wasted their time. There was so much more they could have done. They could have started the show where you are in the show now should have been where the season as it is, where that ends, that should be where you are. By the time their 13 episodes are done, I feel like I got 4 episodes worth of good material in there that would have been really good, like really engaging. You're going to hear me equate this show to Buffy a lot, in that it's this guy who has this responsibility. Unlike Buffy, he seeks it out. He wants to be or wanted to be the Iron Fist, but you're a long line of people. You have this responsibility that you're supposed to accept. You have sort of the surrounding cast of characters that do different things, that play different roles, just like the Scoobies in Buffy. You have Claire Temple, the nurse. You have the samurai girl. You have eventually Davos, his friend from Kunlun, who's there. And like they could have done this sort of ensemble thing, because Danny Rand himself was not a strong enough character. I didn't like the actor in the role very much. It could have been the writing. It could have been the directing, but I'm going to blame the actor.
Yeah, he didn't feel like comfortable in the role. You know, he felt like a white guy trying to do a white guy who is into Asian culture.
For a man that can punch through a brick wall, you should be able to act your way out of a wet paper bag.
Yes.
I also didn't like Ward. I didn't like the guy they cast for Ward. I feel like he looked like the child of the horrible science child of Willem Dafoe and what did I wrote it down here in the thing.
Keanu Reeves?
No, Willem Dafoe and Fred Armisen.
Oh,
like I couldn't get it out of my head that I just saw both of them in him. Except he couldn't act. Again, he also gets better. Like his character gets almost toned down towards the end of the show.
Okay.
Like, because he's so extreme all the time. And so is Danny. And that was annoying. So I'm going to say the writing wasn't great. They wasted too much time. And I could never tell if they were trying to do like cheesy kung fu kind of stuff in the show. Because there's definitely some of those tropes. You know, and that was Iron Fist's whole thing. He was created because there was the kung fu craze and the martial arts film craze in the 70s.
Yeah.
Like, but it was trying to kind of pay homage to that while being super serious. But a lot of those kung fu movies weren't that serious. Plus, the big one, those kung fu movies sat back and let you watch the action.
Yep.
And this has a lot of problems with editing. So, I mean, let's dig into some of the story stuff. So first, the couple episodes you were talking about, the mental ward stuff, right?
Ugh. That is boring as sin. It is just the worst.
Right. Now, I get it. I understand why they're like, you show up claiming to be somebody who's been dead for 15 years, you're going into a mental ward. I love that. Like, that to me makes sense. But you know what I would have seen? I would have wanted to see they bring the guys in the white coats, basically. You know, they drug him or they do something, or they just pull him into the van kind of thing. And then we see a glow through the window of the van, the back explodes, and he runs off. Done.
Yeah. Or he wakes up in the hospital and same thing. You see them like, you know, try to subdue him and then boom, glowing light. He explodes out of the room, punches through the wall, and he's out again.
Because the whole point of those 2 episodes was to prove that he is who he claims he is. People don't believe he is who he says he is. And he does, in fact, have this magical fist.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that's all. They could have taken no time at all.
No, I mean, I get you need to take the time to introduce our characters, which is why I don't want to say that the last 3 episodes should have been the first 3. Like, give me 3 episodes, introduce characters, but cut through the fat.
You could have had it just pick up with him in the hospital, telling people that he is this person and blah, 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 you know?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't even have to show him walking around the city barefoot like some sort of hippie and hanging out in the park and getting the homeless guy to Google search him. You know, just...
Yeah. Like, and all the weird lines on him as he's flashing back like it has something to do with his power, even though it doesn't. And that doesn't get reintroduced until the very end of the season. And even then, only barely. So they're doing all of these things that never carry through, so they're not building themes, they're just doing stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what bugs me about it. So we move on. Episodes 3 and 4, they have the hallway scene. Kind of like we had the hallway scene in Daredevil, and then they did it again in Season 2, not as good. But that amazing hallway scene that everybody talked about from Season 1 of Daredevil. Then you get Luke Cage, who does his own thing where instead of slowly and gruelingly and painstakingly beating his way through all these people, Luke Cage just walks straight through them. And it's awesome. And then we get this one. And it's nothing. He fights a bunch of dudes with hatchets in a hallway.
Oh, now I remember the scene you're talking about.
Yeah, it shows him doing the, like, I'm dodging it and seeing it as it flies by my face. But there's nothing special or different.
Yeah.
What I wanted, as soon as I saw that, I said, oh, cool, we're going to get his version. Is he going to do one big punch and take everybody out? Is he going to knock the lights out and then they turn on? And because he's supposed to be, several times in the comics, he's referred to as the greatest martial artist in the Marvel Universe, or at least on Earth, I guess, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think the idea that maybe I didn't jump on right away in this show is this is supposed to be Danny Rand immediately after he gets the Iron Fist power, he splits. I think that's what we're supposed to know. Like, he still has his martial arts training, but he doesn't really know what he's doing with the Iron Fist. Because as we get through the season, there are things he doesn't know how to do. He can only really channel it at one time in one fist. We see old news footage eventually of a man dressed in the actual Iron Fist outfit, but it's a black and white footage from like the 40s or something like that, where he has both fists are just lit up constantly while he's beating a bunch of soldiers. And then there's a point where he learns how to use the Iron Fist to heal somebody. The idea is there's things that he doesn't know yet, and I'm okay with that, I guess. Here's what I wanted. Let me just get to the point instead of dancing around it. I wanted him to get through all of the Hatchet Men without touching a single one. I wanted it to be blocking and dodging, and the point is Colleen has been taken into an elevator at the end of the hall, and he wants to get there before the elevator door closes, or something like that.
It wasn't Colleen. It was Joy.
Okay, so Joy gets taken, and he wants to go and try and save his childhood friend. And I wanted to see his version of this fight, is he is so good, and I literally wrote it, flow like water. I want to see him flow like water through this crowd. It's just, he's Neo at the end of the first Matrix.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he can just see every single thing in slow motion and him just walk around it. Like Quicksilver, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as being it, but the idea of doing it and then stand back and let us watch. One of the biggest problems with this entire show is the smallest stunts or the little fight scenes. It's cut like a Jason Bourne movie where they need to cut it 18 times when they throw one punch to make you feel like they're better than they are. Yeah. And it's one of those, like, we've seen in the other shows that you can pull it off. I know it takes work, guys. I don't know. Get better stunt guys. I don't want to ever insult stunt actors. Yeah. But, like, I don't know. I feel like we didn't get the martial arts action we asked for until the end, and even then, very little of it had to do with Danny Rand. We got some good stuff with Davos, some good stuff with Colleen Wing fighting Bakudo, who, and I'm just throwing out names you don't even know right now.
It's true.
So did you see the episode with basically I wrote Fight Club, I didn't mean the cage fight, but did you see the episode with him accepting the challenge from Madame Gao and fighting 3 different rounds of bad guys?
No.
Okay. So there was an episode where he accepts a challenge by the ancient rites of who cares, where he's going, if he wins this tournament, it's the same thing he had to do to become the top guy in Kunlun, the ancient mystical city that he trained in. Mm-hmm. And so he fights 3 rounds of people that are loosely based on comic book characters. The first one, he fights a pair of guys, and I do not know who those guys are supposed to be. He fights the Bride of 9 Spiders, or an interpretation of that. So there is a comic character called that. This is just a lady who has a spider tattoo and little poison darts she sticks people with. And sex, she uses sex as a weapon to try and I guess get him horny enough to give up. And then the last guy that he fights is based off a villain called Scythe, who was a very old Iron Fist villain, I think, who died right away. So they have this thing where he's going through multiple rounds of fights. And that's where you see in the trailer where he's got like the armband on, and that's because he wrapped up a cut and he like throws his fist down and lights explode for no reason. Mm-hmm. That's this. And there's no reason for any of that. I think it's just paying homage again to older, maybe 80s, fight movies. It felt like an episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is what I put in my notes. Because it's, now you will fight me, and the challenge is different. Scaffold fight! Like the last fight is just, there's a room full of scaffolding for no reason. And they have to fight around the scaffolding. So I felt like it was meant to be this big epic thing, and it wasn't. And he loses in the end. He quits. And he quits because it's not Joy. He's there to rescue somebody. We'll just put it that way. He's there to rescue somebody else's daughter, totally separate from the rest of the plot. Gao grabs her and puts a knife to her throat and says, I'll kill her if you don't give up. And so he gives up. If you wanted to show me a Danny Rand who doesn't know what he's doing, who doesn't know his powers yet, and who isn't the hot shot he thinks he is, make him lose proper. Like, actually show him getting beaten by somebody, and then he can just, mow him down later on. It's not a big deal, but instead, he just sort of gave up. So the show is trying to do this, he's amazing, but not really. But he's amazing, but not really. And I think that's another thing that confuses the show along the way, is I love character development, but they're not setting him up for character development when they do that. There's times in the show where Danny is like, I need to recharge my chi to use the Iron Fist again. And then he can just use the Iron Fist again without us seeing him recharging his chi. Or later on in the show, literally, he has a whole superhero losing his power thing, like due to his confidence or something. And
Okay.
then they end up kidnapping Madame Gao, which is its whole thing as well. Because, like, they go to China to track her down. And they're like, what are you going to do if you get her? He's like, I don't know. I'll come up with something. Like, well, you can't just take her back on the plane. And then they just, like, defeat everybody but her. And he grabs her and he's like, let's go. Smash cut. She's back in New York. Like, they totally just threw her on the Rand plane and just flew back and just hung out
Well,
on
yeah,
the plane with her.
because going to rural China and back is like a 3-hour, 4-hour trip, something like that.
And the show does this a couple times. There's another time where they're like, so they have Madame Gao, and then for no reason, Claire's like, let's make sodium pentothal because I'm a nurse, so I literally know everything about magic. Doctorness. I wrote magic doctor. I'm sorry. I looked at my outline. It's like, I know everything about medicine sort of thing. And it's like, oh, okay. She just comes up with sodium pentothal. And it's like, you work for a pharmaceutical company. Here's a list of ingredients I know off the top of my head for you to go and get. And they're like, but you can't just enter Rand Enterprises. They know who you are and what you look like, and you're not allowed in the building. Smash cut is him, like, knocking a window out and opening a door in the building just into the room that has, like, medicines and chemicals in it.
Well, yeah, those are the sorts of rooms you'd want to put on the outside of the building. So
It's
that
not on the
people could
outside of the
break in.
building. It's not. He doesn't enter from the outside. They smash cut to him just being inside.
Oh.
They say, you can't get in there. There's armed guards. You're not allowed in the building. And they smash cut to him just being in the building. These are the type of narrative problems that this show has. During this whole multiple rounds of things, he is having hallucinations, I guess, from the spider venom thing. But I feel like he starts getting them when he's fighting the brothers, and I don't think anything they had was poison, of this guy, the Thunderer. His actual name escapes me, but it is the guy from the comics who trained him, and he is Davos's father in the comic books.
So Lee Kung or something like that?
Yeah, the Thunderer, yes.
Yeah.
And he's having hallucinations of this guy talking to him and what the Iron Fist is and what it means, and that sort of gives him the courage to keep going, even though he's slowly getting worn out. We never see or hear of that guy again. Like, the Thunder is mentioned once or twice when Davos is around, but the actor, we never see it. We never hear his voice. Like, that whole thing, which I don't think was a poison hallucination, it was just a thing he was imagining, never shows up again in the whole show. Like, some of the decisions that they make are so weird. But I'm going to skip ahead again and talk about the plot thing I liked. I liked the Hand plot twist. So spoilers for you, Liam. Colleen has always been a member of the Hand. But Madame Gao supposedly controls an offshoot of the Hand that does drug dealing and all that stuff. The rest of the Hand is operated more like an outreach program for kids. So they help kids get off the streets. They train them. They'll make them doctors. They'll put them through school, give them scholarships and stuff. The idea being then they have agents everywhere, but they don't really know that they're like agents of this cultish, kung fu organization. So in her mind, she runs a dojo, helps kids get off the streets, and then there's the one student that she talks about, like, he's going to get a scholarship and he's working really hard for this.
Yeah.
That scholarship is him being inducted into the Hand and going to this New York compound where they're really well taken care of. The food is really good. They train. They're all really happy. So we get this Hand plot twist of not only is Colleen a member of the Hand, but she thinks the Hand is good and is like, hey, Danny, did you never consider that you were raised your entire life to believe we're evil and there was nobody to tell you there was a second opinion? That I liked. That she's like, you've been brainwashed to think we're evil. Madame Gao is evil. I agree with you. The rest of us are fine. Whereas Danny's obviously the opposite. You've been brainwashed by the Hand. The Hand is evil. My people are right. That
Yeah.
I liked. Like, they got into it in the later half of the season. And that's where this guy Bakudo comes in. He's sort of the leader of this, finger quotes, good faction. We find out, of course, he is evil, and they're spying on people all over the city, and, that sort of thing. But they're never really drawn as nearly as bad as Madame Gao, except, obviously, they're still willing to kill people, and they're he wants to take over Madame Gao's operations, but I don't think he's going to take over the drug stuff. I don't quite remember. It was more like, he's like, there are people that are addicted to Madame Gao's synthetic heroin. He's like, here is this solution that will help speed up their recovery as they go through rehab. He's like, I want to work with the Rand Corporation to put it out on the market kind of thing. So he's like, I'm honey versus vinegar. I feel like I'm not getting that metaphor right.
You catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar?
Sure, we'll say that. But
Okay.
he uses that thing. He's nice to everybody and helps people in order to get them to help him and do what he says, versus Madame Gao, who steals your children.
So the hand is actually all evil, or is it just Madame
Yes.
Gao that is evil?
No, that's the whole thing, and they never quite get through. You don't actually end up learning what the real organization of the hand is. You just have two people saying two different things.
Okay, because, yeah, from Daredevil and everything that I've ever seen, the hand has been considered evil.
But that's
Like-
always Madame Gao's version of the hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, it just, to add that in where he's a good guy, but, oh, he's actually a bad guy, that just muddies the whole thing in such an unnecessary, weird way. It just doesn't seem to make any sense to me just
Okay.
hearing it.
Right. Like I said, when you watch it, it's fine because he's just introduced as it's just another backstab. It's just another flipping of the story. So Bakudo gets introduced as sort of this, no, I'm actually a nice guy. Like he's introduced as Colleen Sensei, but she doesn't really want to talk to him, sort of thing. And then when she eventually gets poisoned by Madame Gao's men, he's the guy that shows up and knows how Danny can use the Iron Fist to heal her, and we find out he studied the Iron Fist for like his whole lifetime. He's heard the stories, so he went to research it because he thinks it's a really cool thing, basically.
Okay.
And then you have this compound, and it all feels very cultish, but he's like, hey, but we don't like what Madame Gao is doing. We're actually the good guys. Like, you've just been told something that's wrong. This is a totally different thing. And then you have Colleen, who's like, they helped me. I came back to America from my grandfather's in Japan, and I had nowhere to go. And they took me in, and they took really good care of me. And now I just have my own dojo, and I do my own thing. You know, that much I actually liked because it's the, hey, I'm a good guy. And of course, Danny is just an idiot and trusts literally anybody who speaks to him.
All
Like,
the time.
yeah.
Every single opportunity, and then he gets frustrated by it, and then he gets whiny, and sometimes he'll beat people up for it. He's
Yeah.
the worst protagonist.
Right. But I did like, the point being, I liked the hand plot twist there, and I loved the introduction of Davos. Like, when he's mentioned, you hope he's going to show up. In the comic books, in the books that you were reading, the Immortal Iron Fist, Davos is the Steel Serpent, which is the symbol that is on Madame Gao's heroin packets. It's the Iron Fist sort of snake without the wings to complete the dragon kind of thing, which he says is just used as an insult to his order or whatever, which is lame. It's much cooler, the Davos origin story, where he tried to fight the dragon and failed, and he only got the one, like, halfway there. I did like Davos. Davos in the story is basically just introduced as Danny's best friend who comes looking for him. He's like, hey, you got the Iron Fist power. Your job was to guard the passage into this heavenly city during the short period of time that it's open, and then it closes for another 15 years. And maybe you're the Iron Fist when it opens again, maybe not, but that's your job, is to guard the pass while it's open and only let in people who should come in. He's like, you ditched me, you ditched the city, you ditched the generations of tradition. Screw you, you're coming back. Because, he's like, because I was trained just like you to be the Iron Fist. My dad is the one that trained you, just like he trained me. I should have been the Iron Fist if this is the way you're going to treat the responsibility. It's awesome. Like, it works really well. He is the Faith to Iron Fist Buffy, which I might have already said.
Okay.
In that he is the rougher, more direct version, and he's like, so he goes with Danny when they sneak into the hand compound or whatever, or he gets into the hand compound, and he's like, this is actually the hand. He's like, you're here with the hand. Are you an idiot? Why are you here? He's like, fine, I'm going to get you out, and we're going to kill as many of these people on our way out, because our job is to destroy the hand, which is totally a departure from the comics, but I get it for this world, that we get a guy whose job is just to defeat the hand.
Yeah.
Instead of in the comics, he's just the champion of his city kind of thing. And I like that. And that's where we actually get a decent fight scene, is Danny and Davos fighting sort of back to back, just beating the hell out of all of these teenagers and people in their young 20s that are learning to they are beating their way out of the compound. And we get some good action there. Like Davos, I like the actor. I think he does a good job. I want to say it was either the guy who plays Davos or the guy that plays Bakudo who actually auditioned to play Danny Rand. and either one of them probably would have been a better choice. I would say Davos. I mean, he's like super, super serious the whole time, but that allows for levity. Like they're in Claire's apartment and to get Danny patched up, and she's like, I ordered pizza, and he immediately is like, all the food of the world or whatever is poison for the soul and the body. She's like, okay, well, I still ordered pizza. And then it shows him trying to eat it, and he's like slowly chewing this New York floppy slice. And she's like, see, isn't this great? It's the best slice in the city. And he's like, it's not awful. It's like, not awful. This is amazing. He's like, it's chewy. I like that. You know, that's why I like his character so much as a flip side of Danny. You know, it allows Danny to do his thing without bothering you so much because you have the other side of the coin with Davos. And then obviously in the end, Colleen defects, and there's the love story between Colleen and Danny Rand, which we did not need. But I actually got a talking to by the wife. After the last episode, I talked a lot about how I don't like love stories in these sort of things. And she kind of set me right. She sort of won the discussion. I'd love to go and record that at some point of why it's actually okay to do it. So I'm not going to talk about why we didn't need this love story at all, except we didn't need the love story at all. And then Colleen ends up being the one that takes on Bakudo in like the samurai sword fight. And that was pretty good too. Everybody's better at kung fu and martial arts than the Iron Fist in this whole thing. Yeah, so, and then I kind of have my final thoughts with the last episodes, where the last 3 episodes were much better, but they did not stick the landing in the end. I will say that as far as casting, I liked everybody but Ward and Danny.
I loved Carrie Ann Moss. When she showed up,
yes,
I was like, this just got better. Unfortunately, she's not in it a ton, but I thought she was the best part of the episodes that I have watched thus far.
Yes, she was completely underused in the show. And I'm looking through the rest of my notes that I put for my end thoughts, and I've kind of said them already. The last 3 episodes should have been episodes 4 and 5. The big cliffhanger at the end of the show is they go back and they find Hand, like, ninjas dead in this pass to the city, and there's the gate, and in the distance where you normally see the city of Kunlun, it's just disappeared. So it's basically the gate was closed early or something, and they didn't do their job. I kind of like it, and I kind of didn't. I would have much rather Kunlun been there and like everybody been dead instead of just dropping this mystery, because I don't see us getting a second season of this show. So I just don't ever see that being covered in the future.
Do you think they'll just give it another season just because they're doing it all with all these shows? Or do you think it'll really be a matter of whether people watch it or not?
They're already filming The Defenders, so unless people decide through that show that he's worthwhile, and I saw somebody on Twitter say this, amongst a lot of other things, but that he's basically the Hawkeye of The Defenders. You're not really sure why he's there. They try really hard to develop him, but in the end, if your story doesn't do a good enough job, they're worthless. Yeah. And he is. Like, in the Avengers in general, Hawkeye is worthless. That's why they turned him into a pseudo-villain. He was mind-controlled in the first one, and all he did in the second one was give a pep talk and visit his family. If they did a scene where you used, hey, we need people who are stealthy and special agents, then you send in Black Widow and Hawkeye, and they do the spy thing. That would have made sense, but we never got that in any of the Avengers movies, so whatever. Let's run through the characters really quick. First up, obviously, let's do Danny Rand. I say he's Harry Potter in the Order of the Phoenix, for Harry Potter fans out there. He is nothing but pure preteen angst, and he is a massive, massive jerk. Or maybe that was Half-Blood Prince.
Why doesn't anybody believe me? I'm the Iron Fist.
Yeah.
I've been in a secret city that's only accessible once every 15 years.
Yeah. And the fact, did you notice in the 4.5 episodes you've watched, he never, ever actually explains himself when he says something and nobody gets it, and it would take him 3 seconds to say, oh, hold on a second, and I can explain. Never happens. He just pouts and wanders off. I can't believe you don't believe that I'm this person who's been dead for 15 years. Instead of being like, hi, so I'd like to talk to you or whatever, be like immediately he could say, here's a thing that only I would know, which eventually he does, like at the end of the second episode with like the M&M's thing. Like,
and
it takes her giving him the M&M's for him to do it.
And where did the M&M's come from? She just went over to her cabinet and had like a whole bag of M&M's, and it looked like she had a box of bags of M&M's or something. It's like,
I'm okay with that, except they don't really ever play with it additionally. The whole thing is just she loves M&M's.
look at her complexion, look at her figure. You're telling me she eats a box of bags of M&Ms so frequently that she needs to keep it there at her disposal? I mean, she would eat nothing but M&Ms if that was the case. Like,
Cocaine is a hell of a drug, Liam.
If they had some throw off line about how she's the aunt and she's helping sell candy for somebody, like, okay, sure, she'd have a box of M&Ms, but she just is like, oh, I know, let me go over to my little candy stash and I'll grab this giant bag of M&Ms. Oh, do you mind having this sent over to a guy who's in a secure wing in a mental unit? The guy just walks in and is like, you've got a special delivery.
Yeah, here's a bag that we didn't maybe check.
It looked like they had opened it, but it didn't look like it was any big thing. You know, it was just like, oh, they want to send him candy? Okay, we'll give him the candy.
Yeah.
And she knows the location of the place. Like, come on.
So let's finish with Danny Rand real quick. We've obviously talked a lot about his character in general. I would just say the last big thing that sort of sums up his character is there's a difference between culture shock and common sense, and the writers didn't seem to grasp that. Like, it makes sense that you've been in a monastery for 15 years, and so the real world of New York as an adult might be different to you, even though you grew up there and talked about playing in the building and around downtown New York.
And it's only 15 years. Our culture hasn't evolved that much in the last 15 years that you'd be totally blown away. We had the internet 15 years ago.
It would take time to readjust. That I get. I totally get that. But the fact is, he lets common sense go completely out the window. He doesn't make decisions when you're sitting there being like, I'm sorry, I can understand that he's very emotional because he's a very emotional character.
Yep.
Rather than what and I guess part of me was probably ruined by the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon because they have Iron Fist as a character, and he's just this ultra yoga namaste, everything is fine. Like, that's just how he talks all the time, except when he's fighting. And then he's like this super fierce, awesome fighter with the Iron Fist. Mm-hmm. I kind of was expecting more of that. I wanted him to be this more like super zen dude who just like gets it and understands and goes with that. But instead we had a guy who was super emotional, which fine, except clearly anger isn't the thing that charges the Iron Fist. Otherwise that would have made more sense.
Yeah.
That he's like, I have this fire in me and it's from the dragon. It's not, it's because you're an angry kid.
And he has this whole, I have no worldly attachments thing going on. But he's living in the park and he has an iPod?
That was the thing he had from a kid, which again begs the question, just like Star-Lord's tape player, where do you get new batteries?
Yeah, he didn't have a charging cable.
Yeah.
And it's still good after 15 years of being in a mystical realm.
Those early iPods were really hardy construction.
Yeah, they had electricity in Kunlun. It was dumb. It was just very dumb.
Yeah.
I did like how they licensed some Outkast.
Yeah.
But that was like oh, hey, okay, I like that song. And then it's like, oh, and now let's keep watching the show. Okay.
Yeah. So the other character you were talking about was Joy. I liked her in general. I thought the casting was good.
Yeah,
I
she's
did
fine.
not think they gave her enough development over the course of the series, though. She is very much the one that gets sort of... Like, they have Colleen Wing, who they give character development to. And so with Joy, they're like, our other female main character. She kind of gets dragged along. Things happen to her. There's plot there. But there's not a lot of character development. She's always just sort of flabbergasted, out of the loop, doesn't know what's happening, and then gets upset at whoever she finds out has been lying to her next.
Yeah.
Whereas... in the comic books, at the end of the original story, first of all, Ward is not her brother, it's her uncle, and it is Howard still being the evil one. And so Iron Fist shows up, discovers the truth, gets Howard, out of position. There's no hand thing or him coming back from the dead or any of that sort of thing. But he puts Joey in charge of the company at the end. Now, after 12 episodes, or 13 episodes of talking about this company, in the end, who's in charge of the company? Like, they don't actually tell us. The idea is Ward or Howard is out of the picture by the end. At the very end, there's a fight because for some reason Howard fighting Iron Fist was a realistic fight to have.
Wait, they do that in the show?
Yeah, they had the big boss fight at the very end is just him punching Howard into a pole that impales him, and he pulls himself off because he's like immortal. And then Ward shows up, shoots him a few times, and he falls off the side of the building, which doesn't kill him. We find out in the show the only way to actually kill Howard is separate his head from his body.
Oh, he's a Highlander.
Yeah, because at one point in an actual
And
decent
here we
scene...
are, we're the princes of the universe. Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. It's at one point in a good character moment, Ward kills Howard and then dumps his body, and then we actually get one good Howard episode where he wakes up and like slowly his brain catches up. Like it feels like a long episode, but it's him slowly like learning words again and learning what things are, and like it shows him like, you know, he sees a fire hydrant that's been popped open so kids can play in it. He like walks up and is playing it, very like Frankenstein. Exactly like Frankenstein, because in the book, he slowly gets more and more intelligent as time goes on. So Joy, good, underused. Let's get back for a second and talk about Howard. I like David Wenham.
Boreanaz?
No, the actor that plays him. Same guy that played Faramir in Lord of the Rings. He played sort of the assistant.
Yeah, David Wenham.
Wenham, yeah. I like him as an actor. I think he does a good job. Yeah. I feel like he way overdid it in the early episodes, and maybe I just needed a throwaway line that we do get eventually. Joy does find out that he's alive, and Ward is like, you got to stay away from him. He's a bad guy. He's why I turned to drugs, and I've been stressed out my whole life, and you know, I'm a wreck. And she's like, well, of course he's weird and emotional. He's been locked in like an apartment for 15 years or 13 years or whatever. I kind of liked, like, I get that part, rather. I won't say I liked it. I get that would be there, but it doesn't make sense. I like after he dies the second time and Ward kills him and he comes back, he is like more on edge where he's calm and then he loses control and he has to calm himself down again. The problem is we already have a Kingpin. We already have a character who is always just ready to burst because he is so full of rage and emotion. I don't need another one of those. Give me something different. Give me something new. Give me a different type of character. In a lot of ways, we have that because he uses family and that sort of thing. I just feel like I could have had Howard be there maybe as a point, kill him off in the middle of the season and give me a better end villain. Give me Bakuto as the final bad guy or something, or give me the Davos fight as the end. I didn't really get a lot of that. And maybe a lot of that is because he was mirrored by Ward. Can we talk about Ward for a second?
As long as it's brief, because he is a boring, tedious character throughout everything I've seen.
Yeah, Ward is a whiner. That's the short version.
Yeah.
The actor lays it on far too thick. I honestly, I kept forgetting his name in the beginning episodes because I didn't care. And when I talked about in the prep episode, I didn't mention him. I called him like Bro Dude Meacham.
And you know how like people of color like to make fun of white people by calling them things like Ward and Beaver and you know, like Leave It to Beaver sort of jokes?
Yeah.
This guy is that distilled to an essence.
Yeah.
I think that is exactly why he's called Ward, because he's just this whiny little white boy. Yeah, my daddy, me, me. Like, oh.
There's real reason for that, though. Like, there's good reason in the plot for him to be so strung out, because he's been lying to his sister, who he clearly loves more than anybody else in the world. Like, he has honest, genuine, familial love for his sister and wants to protect his sister, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, and knowing his dad's alive, and eventually through the show, there's things like he walks in on his dad busting guys' teeth out so that their bodies can't be identified. And he's like slowly losing his mind, and so he turns to drugs. I get that, you know? Like, it's that thing where I understand what they're doing with the character, and I like the idea of what they're doing with the character because it's complex. I just don't feel like they did it well. I felt like this show tried again to spend some time with your villains and some time with your hero. I just feel like the villains didn't really do a good job, which is why they had to split it up into our hero and then this family drama going on. And it's just, if you just separate out that family drama, I don't feel that you have as good a story. You have a great short story. The dad has secretly been alive. The one daughter doesn't know, and she's just trying to figure things out. The brother is a complete wreck because he's been keeping it from his sister. Like, that's an interesting story. So I don't know why I wanted them to go back to something else every time I saw them.
You know, this guy has won 2 daytime Emmys.
For what?
Ward is actor Tom Pelphrey.
Okay.
And apparently he was on daytime soap operas, The Guiding Light.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep, The Guiding Light and As the World Turns.
That makes a lot of sense. Yes.
Yep.
He is a soap opera actor at his core. Perfect. That we don't need to say any more about his character.
Nope.
He's a soap opera character and actor. Wonderful.
Yep.
Next, I have Colleen Wing. Now, how much of her have you seen at this point in the show?
I've gotten to see her kick a little butt in the cage a couple of times.
Okay.
I saw that pretty sweet fight where she was 2-on-1.
Yep. By the way, the white outfit she wears is sort of a throwback to her costume in the comics.
Okay.
And when she calls herself the Daughter of the Dragon, that is the sort of unofficial team name of her and Misty Knight, who was introduced. She's a cop in Luke Cage.
Okay.
I liked her for the most part. In the beginning, I had no idea why she was doing this samurai training around the city, being like, I heard you guys trying to find me. I'm like, I don't know what you're doing. What are you training them for? Like, I was so annoyed. I was like, I get the martial arts training. You're learning self-discipline. You're learning self-confidence, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And she's like teaching them how to stalk her through a city. Like, I have no idea, because eventually it became super clear that she was a member of the Hand. But at that first time that it's shown that, you're just sort of assuming that she's this well-to-do person with a failing dojo, and she's training her students and trying to be a good teacher. And then she's like, I heard you guys chasing after me.
And you smell like onions.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't understand what you're doing. And then they did the Hand, and I was okay with it, and I understood why I was so confused. That's okay by me. Like, confuse me early on if you explain it later on, and it's a good revelation. Cool. Because that means that I was rewarded for sticking with the story. Again, quickly on the love story, the only note that I had is I feel like if you're the one person that takes Danny off the street when nobody else believes him, and you're his friend and you give him a place to crash, that is good enough to cement their relationship as a friendship without necessarily doing a love story and actually having them hook up. The whole thing is later on, he feels like she betrayed him, and he's like, did Bakudo tell you to sleep with me? And he's like super angry, of course he is, and super betrayed, because of course he is.
You mean angst-ridden,
yes.
Not angry.
So I get that that's why the love story was in there, was to heighten that. Because it's me, I feel like I could have done without it, and we actually could have had a decent friendship, because otherwise he doesn't really have any friends in the whole show. He has the people he considered his family, his girlfriend, and then there's Claire. Well, I guess there's Davos, who he considered his friend. But yeah, and I also, like, Colleen runs around with the sword a lot for somebody who should probably get called out for running around with the sword a lot, like in the city.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
I guess it's New York, so,
And that is true. And I did think that while watching it. I'm like, I guess if there's a place where people wouldn't care, it'd probably be New York, yeah.
Yeah. You know what they say about New York? It's the city that never sheathes its sword.
Right.
Yeah.
So next I have Bakudo, which we already talked about. I liked his character. I liked the actor. Everything about him was fine. I believe he's based on a short-lived Daredevil villain. I might have said that already. I would have liked to have seen him for more of the season. I would have liked that to be the harder betrayal. And then that comes along with a Colleen betrayal, Like, you get Bakudo, he's around for a while, and then you find out, we get rid of the Howard Meacham. We lose him halfway through the season. So he's our first half of the season villain. Which they kind of did in Luke Cage, where we swapped villains halfway through the season. And then you'll bring in Bakudo, who's there, and it's like, he's this nice guy. Boom. Oh, no, we actually find out he's the villain. And then maybe we know he's the villain throughout. Like, we'll see behind-the-scenes stuff with him, follow him a little bit. But then he holds out his hand and asks Colleen to come with him, and that's when the mic drops. That would have been such a great moment. Instead of him being like, in the end in the show, it was like Danny Rand is like, I recognize the knife on Bakudo's wall in his office. It's a knife used by the Hand. You're in the Hand. And you're like, you could have really done a better gut punch with that, I feel. Davos, like I said, I love Davos. I thought Davos was a great character. My only issue is the end of the show. You see Davos meeting with Joy, who doesn't know who to believe. Madame Gao is like in the corner listening. They're like in an open air cafe, but it looks like they're in Britain because he's British. He has a British accent. And it's like, why didn't he go back to Kunlun? His whole thing was, you need to come back with me to Kunlun. And then eventually he fights Danny because Danny refuses to return. And Davos just kind of is pissed off at his friends, so they get into a fight over it. And then he's like, fine, whatever, you betrayed everybody, I'm out of here. And he leaves, which is perfect and fits his character. It's just, I don't know why he doesn't go back to guard the pass in Kunlun, where he says they both should be. And instead, it shows him and he's like clean shaven instead of stubble. And I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe he decides he's going to do his own thing and become the Steel Serpent at some point. I have no idea. So the ending was confusing for me as far as what Davos was up to. And again, I don't know that we're going to get a season 2. Otherwise, I would love the idea of him being the villain for season 2. But again, in my mind, I would have that fight happen at episode 10, and then Davos leaves, and then we'll move into like the final fight with Bakuto or whatever for the end of the series. You know, the last 3 episodes can be that big storyline. Give me Davos in the early part of the season, and then lead up to the middle of the season, and then do the big, in my mind, I'm equating it with Buffy, do the big Buffy Faith fight where they finally come head to head and fight one another. Give me that. I've plotted out what I think the show should have been, clearly, in my own head. And I know you don't really have anything to say because you haven't seen any of that stuff yet.
Yep.
Okay. How about Madame Gao? Are you liking the extension of Madame Gao into the show? It is mostly the first time we've seen her since Daredevil.
It feels pretty natural to me, considering that they're sort of coordinating what they're doing in the shadows in this show with what they're doing in the shadows in Daredevil, with like the whole purchasing of land and like moving of drugs and stuff like, you know. She seems fine. I don't feel like she's out of place, especially since they're using the hand in this as well.
Right.
So, yeah, I feel she's fine.
Okay. I'm going to ruin Madame Gao now. Like I'm ruining everything. First, they drop these hints, and then nobody ever asks follow-up questions. She talks about having known Danny's father, maybe. She talks about that she might have been to Kunlun at some point. At one point, like in Daredevil, she does the one thing where she hits... It's Daredevil, isn't it? Where she hits him like in the chest, like flat palm fisted, and just sends him flying across the room.
Yeah.
And you're like, holy cow, she's much more than she appears. There's another one of those moments here where she does it, and it looks like it's a force push, like a Jedi. I don't think she hits him. She uses something to send Danny Rand flying across the room, and it's never brought up. Nobody says a single word about it. And that's like that's like the episode you're on, is she pulls this stunt. And then it's never brought up again. She goes quietly when her men are defeated, and she is kept prisoner in this compound for a while because she gets taken by Iron Fist and Colleen Wing and Claire, and then eventually they turn her over to Bakuto because they think he's a good guy. And like she's strapped to a chair, and they try doing the truth serum thing, and it's always like she says one thing, like they paint her as being this super manipulative person, but it's not written well enough to work that way. It's like somebody where it's like tied up and you're looking at the guy, the grunt. He's like, you know, you seem like a smart guy. Why aren't you in charge? And then everybody has a giant fight that allows you to escape. It's that level of manipulation.
Okay.
The actress, I still feel, does a really great job. Like for she is Madame Gao. You know what I mean? I don't see her. She's not phoning it in at all. I think she's doing a great job with the material they give her. I just wish, leave her mysterious fine. I see her being a major villain in the Defenders, but if she has magic and stuff going on, come on. Plus, at one point, she mentions, who is she talking to? She's talking to somebody and says something about her master. Once. There is one mention in that show that Madame Gao has somebody above her, and that's all we hear about that. So again, they're dropping crumbs of stories that would be more interesting, and they're spending more time on stuff they didn't need to. Last 2 characters that I have for us to talk about is Claire.
Wonderful.
Rosario Dawson is, and I knew it going in, she was going to be my favorite. So I think she's tied with Davos. As much as I like Carrie-Anne Moss, she's just not in it as much.
Yeah.
She is sort of the audience surrogate. She's the one that says what we're thinking. She's the only one who thinks straight. The problem there is, of course, she shouldn't have to point out all of the common sense things to the character. She can still be our audience surrogate and ask the questions we want to ask the characters in order to, you know, give them a reason to give us information they otherwise just know. You know, give them a reason to explain the things that otherwise they wouldn't say out loud. She does say Sweet Christmas twice in reference to Luke Cage. She is also shown at one point reading letters that they don't officially say is from Luke Cage, but there's all these little teases to her and Luke Cage where like she gives Danny a t-shirt to wear and it's got a bullet hole in it on the shoulder where Luke Cage was shot. He's like, I have a friend, he left it here. And he's like, is your friend okay? She's like, yeah. And I liked that. So there's some nice little tips of the hat to the other things. Joy at one point references a private eye she hired, which was really good when she was sober. So references Jessica Jones. There's a lot of little Easter eggs and stuff. And I'll close out with Easter eggs. But Claire I liked, and you said Carrie-Anne Moss, right?
Yep.
She's
great.
Yes. Her character is perfect. She plays it perfectly. And it's actually written very well, where she doesn't want to get involved. Like, and it comes up later on. Like, she's there when Ward and Danny are really opening up. She's like, I wasn't aware I was going to be here for a bunch of raw emotional crap.
I loved when he went to give her a hug and she's like, oh no, we don't do that.
Yes. her character is so solidly drawn. It does bring up to me the question of they have this whole Staten Island thing that Danny gets involved in where, I think it was Staten Island, where there was like one of their chemical plants and people are getting sick in this radius around the chemical plant. And they're like, we were cleared though. The EPA cleared us. So as far as we know, it's something else because according to the government, we're doing everything right. And then Danny Rand is like, no, clearly we're not and whatever, and screws up the whole company. They never really get back to that. So I don't know if it was a reference to something else in Marvel that happened on Staten Island, maybe, where people got sick from something. I'm not sure. I don't know if that was a reference, so...
Yeah, that doesn't stick out in my mind.
No, because I don't think any of the Hulk stuff was Staten Island.
No.
If there's a listener out there who knows if that's a reference to something else and that's why it was dismissed, or if it was just another example of bad writing.
I'm going with bad writing.
Yes, but more of...
Prove me wrong, Twitterverse.
More of her, please.
Oh, yeah.
So, Easter eggs. Quick list of Easter eggs. Claire saying, Sweet Christmas. We get a lot of references to Davos the Thunderer, Kunlun, Shulau the Undying. There's kind of like one shot where they sort of suggest maybe it is a real dragon. Like Davos says it very blatantly, like, why wouldn't you believe it's an actual dragon? Which, again, love Davos. But there's this really weird scene where he sees like two red lights and you get a glimmer of a dragon's face or dragon eyes or something. And I'm okay with him. I did not want to see him fighting a dragon. I just didn't know if they were going to make it more metaphorical or not. Just like in other of these Netflix Marvel shows, we do have the Stan Lee cameo as a cop poster. He is a police officer on a thing that's if you see something, say something kind of poster. Perfect. Give me that level of Stan Lee cameo. I don't need him in the corner saying a Stan Lee line.
Nope.
I already mentioned the Jessica Jones reference. Also a plot line that didn't really go anywhere is we find out Joy hired her to take all of these incriminating photos of other members of the board in case anything went down. And then the only time that information is used is when Howard tries to blackmail one of the board members, reveals he's still alive, tries to blackmail one of the board members into doing what he wants, and then ends up shooting the board member in the head anyway. And so the whole... I have dirt on everybody on the board thing, and the fact that Joy might have a dark side kind of goes away. I mentioned the Luke Cage letters. The stickers under Wendell Rand's desk, when he climbs under the desk and is looking at the stickers, those are drawings by Jack Kirby, the different monsters. I mentioned Calling Wing Soup, Brighter Night Fighters, the Steel Serpent logo on Heroin. It's mentioned that Karen Page is working for the Bulletin now, which is cool. She's clearly stepped in the shoes of her mentor. And then there is a quick mention by Madame Gao when she's having a secret meeting on the 13th floor of the Rand building, another thing they don't really get into much. She mentions the Dogs of Hell, and they are sort of the go-to biker gang in the Marvel Universe. So that's Easter eggs. Let's close out this discussion of Iron Fist. This is all leading up to the Defenders. So you've only seen Daredevil and almost half, I guess we'll say, of Iron Fist. So from what you have seen, are you excited to see a Defenders? And from what you've heard and read about Jessica Jones and Iron Fist, are you looking forward to a Defenders show, or do you feel these characters would be best used if they were just on their own?
I guess I do sort of feel like they'd be better served in their own separate series. I don't have a lot of familiarity with the Defenders as like a team.
Absolutely no relation. The original comic book Defenders was like Nighthawk, Doctor Strange, the Hulk, and the Silver Surfer. Like their job was to defend against mystical threats. This Defenders, unless we're talking about the Hand being mystical, it's literally, there's nothing. It's just a bunch of street level heroes. It's closer to the Marvel Knights team than anything in the comic books.
So yeah, I mean, I'll check it out. It can't be any worse than Iron Fist.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got 3 parts good, 1 part lame. You should probably be able to do pretty good with that. Part of it is that I really like the character of Daredevil, and I really like what they've done in his show. So I kind of just want to watch that. I don't really care to see him having to sort of like amalgamate his plotline into the plot lines of other people.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if it's a natural thing where he's doing his thing and he teams up with the other 3 in order to do something, yeah, sure, that would feel more natural and not quite just so abrupt and like, hey, here it is. They're all being put together. Let's watch them.
And that might be the way they paint it, though. They may put that show together of smaller vignettes, more like a Game of Thrones, where we have all these different characters with their separate plot lines that eventually come together in the end. The one thing that I think this team will have in common with the comic book Defenders is they were referred to as an anti-team, and that every member of that team traditionally was a loner and not a member of super teams. So that's why they only got together when they really had to. And I think Ghost Rider might have been in the Defenders at some point too.
I think you're right, yeah.
Yeah. So it's the idea that they're all these solo heroes doing their own thing, but they all vaguely might deal with supernatural or very powerful things. And so that would bring them together. So in things like The Hand kind of seems to be built up as the main villain because Jessica Jones just had the Purple Man, and that was pretty much it from what I remember. Now, I had to binge all of these shows. I had to binge Luke Cage for the podcast, and I just binged Jessica Jones and Daredevil because I liked the shows. So it's been a long time since I've gone back. I haven't gone back and rewatched things. I might have gone back and rewatched Daredevil Season 1 before the second one, just because I really liked Daredevil Season 1. But yeah, my biggest thing I want to see the Heroes for Hire, Luke Cage and Iron Fist put together, and I want to see how they're going to make that happen, because right now, I have absolutely no idea how these two characters would mesh together. I see Luke Cage bapping Iron Fist on the back of the head and knocking him out and walking away because he was whining too much.
Yeah.
Which would be great, but I don't think they're going to use him for comic relief. Yeah, but those are kind of my final thoughts on the show. Should have been shorter. It was overwritten.
Oh, yeah.
And they could have done some slightly better casting. I don't know. Any other final thoughts on Iron Fist for you?
Don't go out of your way to watch it, I guess.
Yeah. Or I've almost said maybe just go and watch the last 3 episodes if you just kind of want a taste of the show.
Yeah. Or rewatch one of the other series that are better.
Yeah. And I've heard there are lists up there you can find of like, here are the 5 Iron Fist stories you should read if you actually want to, whatever. I think it was an IGN article that was like the 5 Iron Fist stories that prove he's actually a decent character. Because I have stayed away from all reviews. I saw some notes online where people were complaining that he would drop into a stance, a kung fu stance, and it would be wrong. Or they would do things like drinking tea and they would do it wrong. Or he would bow and they would do it wrong. That to me is very nitpicky. I get it if you're the person that's really into kung fu, or you're a martial artist and you're watching a show about the world's greatest martial artist who doesn't do it right.
Yeah.
That I get. I have mostly stayed away from reviews and that sort of thing, so I don't know if people out there are actually saying that the character itself isn't strong enough for a series, because I don't believe that for a second. No character is weak enough for a series. But I will say that I am really excited now to do it. I've been holding on to a podcast from the Fat Man on Batman podcast, Mark Bernardin's review of Iron Fist, and on our subreddit, and we'll get into the end of the show and talk about the subreddit, but on our subreddit, there are several people that are already going back and forth giving their reviews, and I've had to sort of scoot them over and be like, hey, so let's start a spoiler thread. So I don't know if I usually post a new thread on there every time we do a new episode. I might just post a link in that one because they're already going. There's already people reviewing. I think one of the people actually put a suggested watching order where you can skip some of the episodes and still get the full story in there. So I'm really excited to finally go and see what some of our listeners and some of the members of the Geek to Geek community out there are saying about this, so I can finally dive into that conversation with them. But I would just say I don't think it has anything to do with the character unless it's the way they're portraying the character, in which case, yes, I don't think they did a very good job.
Yeah. Womp womp. And I don't think that the character is necessarily lame or anything, because I enjoyed reading the or the issues of the Immortal Iron Fist. That was a good read. I enjoyed it. It was well written. The character felt natural. He didn't feel like the character in the show where it just was like a white guy pretending to be a white guy liking karate. He had a Daniel Russo sort of feel to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But in the comic, he's cool. He's strong. He knows what he's doing. He's, I don't know. Don't give up on Iron Fist as a whole, but the show could use a lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely. So we move into the end of the show?
Let's move it on.
With ba-da-ba-ba-doo-da, wah,
Skittle-bop,
wah,
skittle-bop-boo-boo-boo-bow.
block, Like I said last time, I said I wanted an Iron Fist Parappa the Rapper crossover. Thank you. I thought that was pretty good. So that is it for this week. Thank you guys so much for listening to us rant and rave about our Iron Fist thing. If you have enjoyed this, if you like our show, please head over to iTunes and leave a star rating and a review. It really helps more than you guys know. We don't spend any money advertising the show. I have no way of advertising the show outside of you guys spreading the good word and giving us reviews. So if you like us, please suggest us to your friends. I have said on the last show we had 10 star ratings and reviews, and I did say that if we get up to 20 by the end of April, I will post a poll on Twitter. I will post a similar poll on the subreddit and let you guys vote for the worst comic book anything. If it's a TV show or a movie, please don't make it Iron Fist, and we will watch it. And we will do a commentary track for it. We won't just review it. We will do it. And in order to do this, Liam, you basically have to watch the movie once, and then you watch it again with just the subtitles on, and you turn the audio off. That way you don't pick up the audio and there's no copyright infringement. So you just tell people when to hit play on the movie. And then we would have to do a commentary track. And I said we'll do the 1990s Captain America with the rubber ears. We will do the Roger Corman Fantastic Four. We will do...
I have a DVD copy of Elektra.
Oh, no. I've never seen it. I mentioned the David Hasselhoff, Nick Fury made-for-TV movie.
Oh.
Yeah. So, guys, we will do this for you, but in return, we ask that you please leave star ratings and reviews. We currently have 11 star ratings on iTunes, and thank you guys so much for that, and especially thank you for the most recent one. I have one from Robert Madrid from March 17th, who says, topic news and everything else, great. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So please do that for us. And while you're at it, you can do it for the other podcasts on the Geek to Geek Podcast Network. We are a part of this wonderful thing that includes the Geek to Geek podcast, as well as the Geek Fitness Health Hacks podcast. Please go and check those out as well. Those are very awesome. If you want to talk to us, give us suggestions of things to read, or send us your opinions on anything we are talking about, you can find us on Twitter at ComicBoxCast. You can send us an email with, I keep forgetting this every time, you can send us diatribes but not manifestos.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, to thecomicboxpodcast@gmail.com. And finally, for longer and more in-depth discussions, you can find us on our subreddit, which is reddit.com/r/geek-to-geek-cast. And like I said, there is already a thread up where other members of our community are already talking about Iron Fist on there. You have literally heard everything there is to say about the show from us. But feel free, head on over there and share your thoughts. We really look forward to hearing from you.
Hearing from you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't really give you anything to chime in with on that one, Liam.
It's fine. It's fine.
This whole episode has basically been me ranting for over an hour while you're like,
it's okay.
I've seen 4 episodes.
We're going to have a Blade Runner movie coming out soon, and whether we're talking about it or not, I'm going to be commandeering an episode to rant about Blade Runner. So
okay, fantastic. Speaking of bonus episodes, just a couple days from now, I will be recording an episode over with the Geektitude podcast. I'm going to be a guest on there where I am, once again, going to be talking Iron Fist. So I'm going to have to try and figure out how to make what I say there different from what I say here. There'll probably be some repeats because I kind of said everything.
Yeah, you said everything except for that you liked it.
That's right. I look forward to being on his podcast, on Joe's podcast once again. I really like his podcast. I don't know that I will be able to pull the episode and post it on this feed, so you're just going to have to go over and listen to Geektitude and catch me over there and spread some comic box cheer over to their podcast. It's always nice to swap listeners every once in a while.
Yeah.
And that is it. We're gonna close the comic box for now. Liam, thank you once again.
Thank you, sir.
And we will see you guys next week. The comic box. Iron Fist. Missed. He tried punching and he missed. I probably could have come up with a better pun or something for Iron Fist.
Iron Mist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, I kind of want to make that the name of the episode, but we're not going to because to find new listeners, we have to call it Iron Fist Review, a.k.a. Iron Mist.
There you go.